Rebecca Lowe, the presenter of NBC Sports Group's Premier League coverage. Pre and post match, the Premier League Live. They have a match today at 2 Eastern. You have Chelsea and Brighton coming up at 2 Eastern. Good morning, Rebecca. How are you?
Dan Patrick, lovely to see you. I'm very well, and I will come third behind Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo any day of the week.
Now, I would pass on Messi because I don't think he's a great interview. So you're second on the list behind Ronaldo.
Oh, appreciate that. Okay, I'll go above Messi. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, let's say I'm a child, and you're going to explain the Super League to me. Okay. How would you do it?
Oh my goodness, what a question. Okay, I would explain that currently in the Premier League, there are 20 teams, and there always have been since it was formed in the early 90s. 6 of those teams who have self-branded themselves the Big Six. So we're talking Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Tottenham, and Chelsea. And yes, they are 6 very big clubs, and they tend to do better than any other club in the Premier League. Those Big Six have gotten together, rather secretly, it has to be said, with some other very big clubs across Europe. We're talking AC Milan, Juventus in Italy, Inter Milan, Barcelona, Real Madrid in Spain. And there will be, they are saying, they have signed a contract to create their own midweek European Super League. ESL is what they're calling themselves, which will take place. They want it to start as soon as possible in August, and it will take place midweek throughout the season, but it will let those clubs still play in their domestic leagues in the UK or in France or in Italy or in Spain. The problem with the situation is that this is a ring-fenced league. This is, for want of a better word, an Americanized league. So once you're in, you're in. You're never going to get out. No matter if you become rubbish overnight, you're in, you're in. You can only go into it on the proviso that you have an amazing one season in your league, but then you might have to lose it again. You might have to go out again. The ones that found and actually have created this league can never fall out of it, which means they will get very, very rich. JP Morgan is backing this league as things stand. They are due for around over £4 billion to share between them. So when they get that rich and they go back to their domestic league, the gap between the likes of United and City and Chelsea and Liverpool, and then the likes of Burnley, Crystal Palace and Southampton will be bigger than ever before, which will mean ultimately competition disappears out of the Premier League. And as Pep Guardiola, the Manchester City manager, said this morning, it is not sport if it doesn't matter if you lose. And if these teams lose in this European Super League, it doesn't matter. There's no relegation. They stay forever. So there is a lot of controversy around this, but that is it in a nutshell, a breakaway controversial league.
When did this start? When did they start forming this?
Well, Dan, I've got to tell you, I remember being a child in the UK. I mean, not that long ago, but back in the late 80s, and people were talking about a Super League, a European Super League. I mean, there was even talked about it in 1964 in some of the newspapers in England. So this has been rumbling for decades, but really, we don't know the full disclosure of how this all took place, because it's happened so quickly. It was announced on Sunday night, out of the blue, very late English time, about 11 p.m. in England. It shocked everybody how quickly it's come out. So this has obviously been in the works for quite some time.
How is this prevented? How do they combat this?
Well, at the moment, the backlash, if anyone listening and watching this has been on Twitter recently, I'm sure they've seen it. James Corden even talked about it last night on his Late Late Show. The backlash is overwhelming. It's the biggest story I've ever worked on in nearly 20 years of being in this industry. It's the biggest backlash I've ever seen. So how does it get combated? Well, rumours today that Chelsea and Manchester City are wobbling. Some of the top football journalists in the UK are saying those two clubs did not realise the backlash would be so big. They're wobbling. So if one or two of the clubs pulls out, it will probably crumble. Money, obviously, is a huge thing. JP Morgan, are they okay with this bad PR? If they stay on board, that's good for the Super League. If they decide, actually, don't really want our name associated with something which is getting so much criticism, that's a problem. And then you've got the fans. And down the fans, I've heard fans over the last 24 hours on shows like yours, but in England, saying, I've been a Manchester United supporter for 40 years. Here's my season ticket. I'm done with my club. And I'm not talking one fan. I'm talking thousands. And only this morning, the grandson of Bill Shankly, the great Liverpool manager, the man that really is in every single sinew of that club. The grandson of Bill Shankly has told Liverpool Football Club, remove the statue of my grandfather from outside Anfield. So this groundswell, plus the players have come out and said they don't want it, a lot of them have, and managers like Guardiola, it's a huge pushback. So I suppose somebody has to crumble at some point under this pressure or withstand it. And it's up to these big clubs whether or not these owners really want to go forward with this.
I was also wondering about the role that the American owners are going to play in this, because they don't live there, and you're going to have Man United, Liverpool, and the impact that they could have removed from this. The role that loyalty is going to play in all of this is what?
The culture is very, very different, Dan. You and I have talked about this many times when we've talked about relegation and the difference between America and the UK. And I think that's something that really has to be understood about English football. We're talking about institutions like United, like Liverpool, John Henry, the Glazer family, Stan Kroenke at Arsenal. These clubs were established over 120 years ago, and by local people for local towns and for cities to keep the community close and to do great things like we've seen throughout the pandemic in the community. And I think over in this country, here in the United States, there perhaps quite isn't that link between huge clubs and their local communities. They haven't been around as long. They weren't created by local men, local working class men for working class fans. So the loyalty that seeps through English football is incomparable really to anything over here. So when you look at it from the owner's point of view, from the American owner's point of view, I can see that it's difficult to understand. They don't understand why anybody would have relegation. Why would anybody threaten a club's future? But that's all part of what makes English football so beautiful, because it's competitive, it's sporting merit, it's how good are you on the day, and how good can you be? Can you really pull off this amazing result against a huge team? And we see it all the time, and that's what makes the Premier League, in my view and many others, the greatest league in the world in any sport. So I think loyalty, they may be coming up against a bit of a surprise with this backlash, because the loyalty is a huge part of this game. And I think also we have to look at ourselves as well, Dan, because 15 years ago, these clubs were owned by fans and by local businessmen. Well, they sold out. They did sell out to American owners, to Russian owners like Roman Abramovich at Chelsea. And now, 10, 15 years on, we're seeing that maybe that was the reason why these business owners wanted to buy these clubs, to maybe turn them into these European superpowers. So, a lot of things have gone wrong over the years, and a lot of people are now looking at themselves. So I think loyalty in football, people laugh. There isn't always a lot of it, but my goodness, between fan and club, Dan, it's tribal and it's a religion.
I haven't heard you this passionate about. I know you love your sport, but you're worried about your sport.
I'm concerned. I'm concerned very much so. I feel that the pyramid of English football in the UK, again, something that I wouldn't expect anyone in the States to understand, but it's not just the Premier League, Dan. I think I've told you this before. There are 5 divisions underneath that, and they're all professional. And these are professional players. Now, the money from the Premier League trickles down to all of these clubs that make up the local towns and villages in the UK. And the worry, Dan, is this, that if the 6 teams from the Premier League go into the European Super League and become so rich, the dream is over in the Premier League, because the Premier League becomes totally non-competitive, because these 6 will have so much money that nobody could ever compete. And then they'll have 14 clubs in the Premier League trying to get into a Champions League, which won't have any champions in it, which means you can finish 8th in the Premier League and get into the Champions League, because these other 6 don't want any part of the Champions League. And all of a sudden, the Premier League becomes non-competitive. The broadcast rights would be nowhere near the value they are now. And the money and the dream doesn't trickle down to all these clubs below, which is the very essence of English football. So my concern is that hasn't been thought through. And we are yet, of course, to see the full plan, because we still haven't seen exactly what these owners want. Let's get the full plan and carry on this conversation. But it's a passionate time. We do need to be cool heads and calm heads. There are rumors today that it might crumble. So let's see where it goes. But yeah, I am concerned for the future of my sport, for sure.
How can I help?
You need to spread the word, Dan. I need to come on here every single day.
Every
day.
Have
these conversations.
Yes, every day.
Dan Patrick, your 5 minutes or 5 seconds of soccer or whatever it is you do, 20 seconds of soccer. Yeah, we need to up that. And I know I've got people watching today who agree with me. We need more conversations with Dan Patrick.
Now, I've been watching some documentaries. I watched the one on Leeds. I watched Sunderland Till I Die.
Great.
Just letting you know, I support the cause, and I like the relegated, programs, the teams.
I mean, here's my question to you, Dan. I know it wouldn't work over in the US relegation because you're far too down the line, certainly in the NFL, and there's no real league underneath it. But the relegation promotion, I mean, that does it not? It adds so much, doesn't it? You can understand.
Yes. Well, you could do this in college football. Let's say you took the top 20 programs, and then you could get, 2 drop each year, and then 2 college football programs go up. Then that would resonate with people, and they'd be like, whoa, wait a minute. That's costly. And that's what it is. It's devastating when you drop financially, when you are relegated. Devastating.
Of course it is. People are laid off. It's terrible. And this is what makes the drama of football so engaging and addictive. And of course, in the States, things are different and it's done in a different way. And I wouldn't expect them to just bring in relegation, but my goodness, it would make it better. But I wouldn't expect that. But over in Europe, it's something that can't change. It's been there for hundreds of years. And I think what people are scared of is that what makes the game so beautiful looks like at the moment is going to be removed, Dan. And
it doesn't help your team, Crystal Palace. They still aren't any good. So none of this helps you, right?
You never know. I mean, if the top 6 finish in the top 6 places and Crystal Palace were to finish 7th, I mean, basically we're champions. So I'm going to go all in for this. I'm okay with that.
It's great to talk to you. Keep your head up. Got a lot of time, for cooler heads, smarter people to. I know you follow the money, and unfortunately, when you follow the money, it's going to lead to this. But hopefully, it doesn't. Thanks for joining us, as always.
Dan, I'll be back tomorrow, of course.
Of course. Okay. Yes. Todd, make sure you book Rebecca for tomorrow.
Confirmed.
All right. Thank you. That's Rebecca Lowe. There's a Premier League match later on today. It is Chelsea versus Brighton.